What does it take to stand against the might of an empire, to rise when all hope seems lost, and lead a people to defend their very soul? Picture this. The year is 1900. The British Empire controls a quarter of the world. They've conquered kingdoms across Africa, Asia, and beyond. Their military technology is unmatched. Their confidence is absolute. Then a 60-year-old African grandmother picks up a rifle, fires it into the air, and declares war. Her name was Yaa Asantewaa, and for 6 months, she led 5,000 Ashanti warriors in a siege that would become one of the most legendary acts of resistance in African history. This is the story of the fierce Queen Mother who dared to defy British colonialism when every man around her counseled surrender. The woman who fought for the Ashanti nation's freedom and ignited the War of the Golden Stool, a rebellion that echoed through history and inspired a continent. Today, we uncover her journey, from farmer and mother to legendary war leader. Stay with us as we bring to life the indomitable spirit of Yaa Asantewaa, a woman who challenged both gender norms and colonial oppression, and proved that true courage knows no age and no gender. Born around 1840 in the small village of Basis, in what is now Ghana, Yaa Asantewaa's early life gave no hint of the legend she would become. She was the daughter of Kwaku Ampoma and Atapo, ordinary farmers who worked the rich soil near Boankra in the Ashanti heartland. As a young woman, Yaa Asantewaa learned the rhythms of agricultural life, planting crops, managing harvests, understanding the land that fed her people. She married and became a mother, raising children and fulfilling the traditional roles expected of Ashanti women. But even then, those who knew her saw something different. She was sharp, observant, quick to understand the complexities of village politics and dispute resolution. She possessed what the Ashanti call adwen, deep wisdom and intelligence that commanded respect. Her brother, Nana Afrain Panin, rose to become the chief of Edweso, one of the important towns in the Ashanti Confederation. And when he needed someone he could trust implicitly to serve as Queen Mother, the Ohema, he chose his sister. Now, to understand the power of this position, you need to understand Ashanti society. This wasn't some ceremonial title. The Queen Mother was one of the most powerful figures in Ashanti governance. She was responsible for advising the king and chiefs on critical decisions, safeguarding the sacred Golden Stool, the spiritual heart of the Ashanti nation, nominating candidates for kingship, serving as the final authority on genealogy and royal lineage, leading discussions on matters of war and peace. In the deeply matrilineal society of the Ashanti, where inheritance and royal succession passed through the mother's line, the Queen Mother wielded enormous influence. She was politician, spiritual guardian, and kingmaker all at once. Yaa Asantewaa embraced this role with intelligence and dedication. For years, she served her people, settling disputes, preserving traditions, and building the political acumen that would later save her nation. But fate had grander and more terrible plans for her. To understand what Yaa Asantewaa was up against, we need to understand the Ashanti Empire at the end of the 19th century. For over 200 years, the Ashanti had been one of West Africa's most powerful kingdoms. From their capital at Kumasi, they controlled trade routes that stretched from the coast to the Sahara. They possessed sophisticated military organization, advanced metallurgy, and a centralized government that rivaled European states. The British had been trying to control the Gold Coast, modern-day Ghana, since the 1820s. Why? Gold, timber, and most shamefully, the lucrative slave trade until its abolition. Even after slavery ended, the British wanted to control the region's natural resources and trade. For decades, the Ashanti fought back. Through the 1820s, 1860s, and 1870s, they engaged in a series of wars with the British that became known as the Anglo-Ashanti Wars. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost, but they never surrendered their independence. Then came 1874. The British launched a massive military campaign, burning Kumasi to the ground. The Ashanti were forced to sign a humiliating treaty, but they still maintained their kingdom and their king. By the 1890s, though, the British patience had run out. They wanted complete control, not just trade agreements, total annexation of the Ashanti kingdom into the British Gold Coast colony. In 1896, they made their move. British forces, using their superior firepower, defeated the Ashanti military and captured King Prempeh I, the Asantehene, the supreme ruler of all Ashanti. They didn't just remove him from power, they exiled him. King Prempeh I, along with his mother, father, other family members, and key chiefs, including Yaa Asantewaa's own grandson, the young chief of Edweso, were forcibly taken from their homeland and shipped to the Seychelles, a remote island chain in the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles away. Think about what this meant. The spiritual and political leader of the Ashanti people, taken away in chains. The continuity of leadership, broken. The symbols of resistance, removed. The British thought they had won. With the king gone and the military defeated, they assumed the Ashanti would simply accept colonial rule. They were catastrophically wrong. For 3 years, the Ashanti endured this humiliation. They watched as British officials imposed taxes, seized land, and trampled on their customs. The chiefs who remained were divided, uncertain, and afraid. Then in 1900, the British made a demand so outrageous, so spiritually offensive, that it would ignite the final great war of Ashanti resistance. In March 1900, the new British governor of the Gold Coast, Sir Frederick Mitchell Hodgson, arrived in Kumasi. He had a message for the Ashanti people, and he intended to deliver it with maximum arrogance. Hodgson assembled the remaining Ashanti chiefs and delivered a speech that would become infamous in Ghanaian history. He declared that since the Ashanti had been conquered, they now owed allegiance to the British crown. And to symbolize this submission, he demanded that they produce the Golden Stool, the most sacred object in all of Ashanti culture, so that he, representing Queen Victoria, could sit upon it. Let me explain why this wasn't just offensive. It was a spiritual and cultural apocalypse. The Golden Stool wasn't just a throne. According to Ashanti belief, it contained the soul of the Ashanti nation. Legend held that in the 17th century, their great priest Okomfo Anokie had called it down from the sky, and it descended onto the lap of the first Asantehene, Osei Tutu. The Golden Stool represented the unity, the spirit, the very essence of what it meant to be Ashanti. No one, not even the Asantehene himself, sat on the actual Golden Stool. It was far too sacred for that. It was placed on its own throne, wrapped in silk, and brought out only for the most important ceremonies. For a foreign conqueror to demand to sit on it, that was like asking them to voluntarily destroy their own soul. Hodgson's speech revealed his complete ignorance of Ashanti culture. He thought the Golden Stool was just a fancy chair, a symbol of political power, like the thrones European monarchs sat on. He had no idea he was demanding the impossible. The chiefs were stunned into silence. Some were afraid. The British had already proven they could destroy armies and exile kings. What more could they do if the Ashanti resisted? Others were enraged but uncertain. Without their king, Without clear leadership, how could they organize resistance? The chiefs called a secret meeting to discuss what to do. Men gathered from across the Ashanti territories, meeting in private, debating in hushed, worried tones. Many argued for appeasement. "The British are too powerful," they said. "We've already lost so much. If we resist, they'll destroy us completely." Others wanted to fight but saw no path forward. "Who will lead us? Our king is gone. Our best warriors are dead or scattered." As the debate dragged on, with fear and despair dominating the room, one figure rose to her feet. She was 60 years old. She was a woman in a room full of male chiefs, and she was about to change history. Yaa Asantewaa stood before the assembled chiefs, and the fury in her voice silenced the room. According to oral tradition and the accounts passed down through generations, she spoke words that would echo through African history. How can a proud and brave people, like the Ashanti, sit back and look on while white men took away their king and chiefs and humiliated them with a demand for the Golden Stool? If you, the chiefs of Ashanti, are going to behave like cowards and not fight, you should exchange your loincloths for my undergarments. She then seized a gun, raised it above her head, and fired it into the air. The shot rang out like thunder. "I am prepared to lead you in defense of our king and the Golden Stool," she declared. "If the men of Ashanti will not go forward, then we, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women, and we will fight the white men. We will fight until the last of us falls on the battlefield." The room erupted. Chiefs who moments before had been counseling submission were now scrambling to pledge their support. The shame of a woman, even one as respected as the Queen Mother, having to shame them into action was unbearable. But more than shame, Yaa Asantewaa's words awakened something that fear had suppressed. The Ashanti spirit that had built an empire, that had resisted conquest for generations, that valued honor and freedom above life itself. Within days, the decision was made. The Ashanti would go to war, and in an unprecedented move that shattered every convention of their society, the assembled chiefs chose Yaa Asantewaa, a 60-year-old woman, a grandmother, a queen mother, to be their war leader. Some historians argue this choice reflected desperation. With the king and most experienced military commanders in exile, they had few options. Others see it as recognition of her unmatched courage and political skill. Whatever the reason, Yaa Asantewaa accepted the responsibility without hesitation. She immediately began organizing the resistance. Messengers were sent to every corner of Ashanti territory. The call went out. The Golden Stool is in danger. Rally to defend the soul of our nation. Warriors gathered. Farmers put down their hoes and picked up weapons. Women came forward, ready to fight alongside men if necessary. Even the young and elderly offered their service. By March 1900, Yaa Asantewaa had assembled an army of 5,000 warriors. They were armed with traditional weapons, swords, spears, and bows, alongside whatever firearms they had managed to acquire or capture over the years. They faced a professional colonial army, equipped with modern rifles, machine guns, and artillery. But they had something the British could never match. They were fighting for their survival, their culture, their very soul. On March 28, 1900, Yaa Asantewaa gave the order. Her forces surrounded the British fort at Kumasi and laid siege. The War of the Golden Stool had begun. The British garrison in Kumasi found itself in a nightmare scenario. They were trapped inside their fort, surrounded by thousands of Ashanti warriors, led by a woman who had turned military strategy into an art form. Yaa Asantewaa's tactics were brilliant in their simplicity and effectiveness. Rather than launching suicidal frontal assaults against British firepower, she implemented a strategy of containment and attrition. First, cut off all supply lines. No food, no water, no reinforcements could reach the British. The lush Ashanti forest that the British found so difficult to navigate became a weapon. Ashanti warriors knew every path, every stream, every hiding place. Second, constant harassment. Day and night, Ashanti forces would attack isolated British patrols, ambush supply attempts, and keep the garrison in a state of perpetual tension. The British could never rest, never feel safe. Third, strategic use of terrain. Yaa Asantewaa positioned her forces to take advantage of the dense vegetation and difficult ground. British military training emphasized open field battles. They struggled in the forest warfare, where Ashanti warriors excelled. For 6 months, this siege continued. Inside the fort, conditions became desperate. British officers and African soldiers loyal to the crown were reduced to eating whatever they could find. Disease spread through the cramped, unsanitary conditions. Morale collapsed. The British governor Hodgson, the man whose arrogance had started this war, managed to escape with a small party, fighting his way through Ashanti lines and fleeing to the coast to call for reinforcements. But for the garrison he left behind, the situation grew worse by the day. Outside the fort, Yaa Asantewaa's army grew. More warriors joined, inspired by her leadership and the chance to strike back at the colonizers. She personally directed operations, moving between different positions, rallying her troops, and making strategic decisions. One British officer, who later wrote about the siege, described her as more dangerous than any male chief we had faced. Another called the Ashanti forces under her command the most determined resistance we encountered in West Africa. But the British Empire wasn't going to let a colonial outpost fall without a massive response. In June 1900, British reinforcements arrived. 1,400 troops equipped with modern rifles, Maxim machine guns, and artillery. This was a professional colonial army with experience fighting across Africa and Asia. The siege became a full-scale war. The battles that followed were brutal and devastating. The Ashanti fought with incredible bravery, but they were facing weapons that could cut down dozens of men in seconds. Machine gun fire tore through traditional Ashanti formations. Artillery shells destroyed defensive positions that had taken days to build. Yaa Asantewaa adapted her tactics, shifting from siege warfare to guerrilla resistance. Her forces would strike quickly and then melt back into the forest before British firepower could be brought to bear. They attacked supply lines, ambushed patrols, and made the British pay for every mile of ground they took. But the cost was terrible. Over 2,000 Ashanti warriors died in the fighting. Villages were burned. Families were torn apart. In September 1900, after 6 months of resistance, British forces finally broke through the Ashanti lines and relieved the fort at Kumasi. Yaa Asantewaa, knowing that continued resistance would only lead to more death, ordered her remaining forces to disperse. Many warriors faded back into the general population. Others fled to territories not yet under British control. Yaa Asantewaa herself was captured in March 1901, along with other Ashanti leaders. The British had won the military campaign, but they had paid a price far higher than they ever expected to fight what they thought would be a minor colonial skirmish. The British didn't execute Yaa Asantewaa. They were afraid making her a martyr would inspire further resistance. Instead, they chose a different punishment: permanent exile. She was taken aboard a ship, along with the other captured Ashanti leaders, and transported to the Seychelles, the same remote islands where King Prempeh I and her grandson had been exiled years earlier. There, thousands of miles from the land she had fought to defend, Yaa Asantewaa spent the final years of her life. We don't have detailed records of her time in exile, but we know she was never allowed to return home. She died in October 1921 at approximately 81 years old, still in the Seychelles, never having seen her beloved Ashanti homeland again. But here's what the British never understood. They could exile Yaa Asantewaa's body, but they couldn't exile her spirit. The Golden Stool, the sacred object that had started the war, was never found by the British. The Ashanti had hidden it so well that despite years of searching, offering rewards, and making threats, the British never got their hands on it. The soul of the Ashanti nation remained intact. More importantly, Yaa Asantewaa had shown what was possible. She had proven that colonial powers could be resisted, that African people could fight back, and that courage could come from the most unexpected places. Her rebellion became a symbol that inspired resistance movements across West Africa. When Kwame Nkrumah led Ghana to independence in 1957, making it the first sub-Saharan African nation to break free from colonial rule, he explicitly invoked the memory of Yaa Asantewaa and the War of the Golden Stool. "If we are to remain free," Nkrumah said, "we must remember the price our ancestors paid. We must remember those like Yaa Asantewaa who refused to surrender." Ghana's independence sparked a wave of decolonization across Africa. Within 2 decades, dozens of African nations had gained their freedom. And while the causes were complex and the movements varied, they all drew inspiration from resistance leaders who had proven that colonial empires were not invincible. Yaa Asantewaa had helped light that flame. But Yaa Asantewaa was more than just a military leader. Her story reveals something profound about African societies that colonial narratives deliberately obscured. In the Victorian British society of 1900, women were considered fragile, emotional, and unsuited for politics or warfare. British women didn't even have the right to vote yet. The idea that a 60-year-old woman could lead an army would have been considered absurd in London. But in Ashanti society, women held significant political power. The matrilineal system meant that royal succession passed through mothers, not fathers. Queen mothers, like Yaa Asantewaa, weren't ceremonial figures. They were kingmakers with real authority. Yaa Asantewaa was highly educated by the standards of her society. She was trained in Ashanti law, history, and political philosophy. She understood negotiation, understood power, and understood when diplomacy had failed and force was necessary. Her leadership also challenged assumptions within her own society. While Ashanti women held political power, military leadership was traditionally male. By taking up the gun and leading warriors into battle, Yaa Asantewaa expanded what was considered possible for women in Ashanti society. After the war, this shift persisted. Ashanti women became more politically active, more willing to speak out on issues of governance and justice. Yaa Asantewaa had shown that gender was no barrier to courage or leadership. Today, she's celebrated not just as a military leader, but as a feminist icon, a champion of women's rights who proved through action that capability has nothing to do with gender. Today, over a century after her death, Yaa Asantewaa remains a towering figure in Ghanaian and African history. In Ghana, she's everywhere. Schools are named after her. The Yaa Asantewaa Museum in Ejisu preserves her memory and teaches new generations about her courage. During Ashanti festivals, her story is retold, her sacrifices remembered. The University of Ghana has a residence hall named in her honor. The government has issued commemorative stamps bearing her image. Artists have created statues, paintings, and sculptures celebrating her legacy. But her influence extends far beyond Ghana. Across Africa and the African diaspora, Yaa Asantewaa has become a symbol of resistance against oppression, of courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and of the power that comes from defending what you believe in. African feminist movements cite her as proof that African women have always been powerful, always been leaders, always been warriors when circumstances demanded it. She destroys the colonial myth that Africa needed to be civilized and that women needed to be liberated by Western powers. The Golden Stool she fought to protect remains sacred to the Ashanti people. It's still brought out for important ceremonies, still treated as the soul of the nation. When you see it today, you're looking at the object that inspired one of history's great acts of resistance, and perhaps most importantly, Yaa Asantewaa's story reminds us that heroes come in unexpected forms. Not a trained soldier, not a young warrior, a 60-year-old grandmother who saw what needed to be done and did it, regardless of the cost. Yaa Asantewaa's war against the British Empire lasted only 6 months. In conventional military terms, she lost. The British maintained their colonial control. Many of her warriors died. She herself died in exile, never seeing her homeland again. But in every way that truly matters, she won. She protected the Golden Stool, the soul of her nation. She proved that the Ashanti spirit couldn't be conquered. She inspired generations of freedom fighters who would eventually drive colonialism from Africa. And she showed the world that true courage has no age limit and no gender. When British officials finally returned King Prempeh I from exile in 1924, 3 years after Yaa Asantewaa's death, they did so because they realized the Ashanti would never truly be subjugated. Her resistance had made that clear. When Ghana gained independence in 1957, it was Yaa Asantewaa's vision made real. When African women stand up for their rights today, they stand on her shoulders. Her story is a beacon of courage and resistance, reminding us all that true power knows no gender, and freedom is worth every sacrifice. Even when hope seems lost, even when the odds are overwhelming, even when the world expects you to surrender, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand up. Fire that shot into the air and declare, "I will not submit." That's the legacy of Yaa Asantewaa, the Queen Mother who became a warrior, the grandmother who became a general, the woman who proved that the human spirit, when defending what it loves, is the most powerful force on earth. If this story of courage and resistance moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories from African history. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost. Comment below. What impressed you most about Yaa Asantewaa's story? Was it her speech to the chiefs, her military tactics, or the fact that she fought at 60 years old? Next week, we're covering another story of African resistance they didn't teach you in school. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it, because African history is full of heroes, and their stories deserve to be told.